So my name is Natalia. I am a member of the Fostering Connections team, and we will be doing a Foster Care 101 session today as we celebrate Foster Care Week. But before we get started, I do want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are all tuning in from today and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Sovereignty was never ceded, always was, and always will be Aboriginal land. Thank you. Great. So in terms of what we are covering today, we are Fostering Connections. So we are the statewide recruitment service for Victorian foster care. So all the information that we will be sharing today is specifically for Victoria. So if you're tuning in from interstate, the legislation and different information could vary for you, but we'll try to give you as much information as we can. So what we do is we sit with the Center for Excellence in Child and Family Welfare, which is a peak body for child and family services in Victoria. And we support prospective foster carers, people who are interested in learning about foster care, getting the right information, getting the accurate information, referring you onto a local agency, and also just helping the general public be more aware about fostering. Um, so in terms of if you are interested in being a foster carer, anyone is more than welcome to visit our website, fosteringconnections.com.au. You can download our information pack there. You can also give us a call. You'll probably get put through to having a chat with me at 1-800-013-088. And then we're able to answer your questions, get to hear a little bit about yourselves and whatever is what you're curious about, and potentially refer you to a foster care agency if that's where you're at. Um, just a little bit about myself. So I have worked in the out of home care sector, specifically in foster care, for over 7 years. So I've worked directly with children, young people, and foster carers and their birth families, doing case management. I've worked with children of all ages because children in foster care can be from 0 to 18. So I've worked with babies who we picked up straight from the hospital to transition into care, all the way through to young people who were preparing to exit care before they turned 18. And with that, I've worked with some incredible foster carers who, we really often say that, you open your heart and you open your home to a foster child, and it really is true. The foster carers are so incredible; they make such a difference, and that's why we really want to celebrate them with Foster Care Week this week and highlight the value of foster carers. I've also done recruitment, so I've supported people as they were getting assessed and training, so I'm able to answer any specific questions you guys have about the recruitment process and what that can look like for you, especially in Victoria. So feel free to submit any questions, and then we'll just be going through. So just a little bit about Foster Care Week. It runs from September 13th till 19th. And this year's theme is the value of carers. So we really want to reflect and pay our respects and highlight how amazing foster carers have been, especially this year as we've all been navigating the challenges of COVID-19. It's tricky for all of us to get through this period of time, especially for foster carers who have children in their home that are vulnerable and that have already a lot of uncertainty and a lot of unfamiliarity around them, and trying to navigate that and create that consistency and safety and that routine for them to feel secure, especially in this environment, is no easy feat. So we really take our hats off to the foster carers. And we will be posting a lot more events throughout this week. So if you want to get involved with Foster Care Week with us, we do have some hashtags. We're going to be posting some interviews and some blog posts about the voices of foster carers this year, of individuals who have experience of being in care, feedback that agencies have provided about the amazing creative and resilient work that carers have been doing. So definitely tune into that. You can find all that information on our website. And I'll just check if there's any questions just yet. Not yet so far. So some of you might be wondering, what is foster care? So foster care is the temporary care of children and young people by members of the community who become trained and accredited by a foster care agency. And they also receive support from that agency. So it's about looking after children and young people who have had a tough time. They can be from the ages of 0 to 18, like I mentioned before, and they're unable to live at home with their family. Foster care is always a last resort as well. So, if there was a significant risk of harm for that child and they couldn't stay at home, all other options would be explored for them to stay with family, or to stay locally within the community. And when that has been exhausted, is when children enter foster care. So, in most cases, when a child enters care, the aim is for them to eventually be reunified with their family. So, it could be just a short term arrangement while there is court proceedings in the background and work is being done with the family to try to support their return. And in some instances, children don't get to return to their family, which is what we call long term foster care when they get a long term order, which I will go into a little bit more detail about that. And all the information today is about Victoria's foster care sector. Just a little bit of information about the statistics around foster care. So at the moment, we've got over 11,000 Victorian children in out of home care. Over 1,500 of those children are in foster care. Um, we have a overrepresentation of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children in care. So if you are interested in providing foster care for Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander children, we can refer you to Indigenous agencies, and they provide really great and fantastic wraparound holistic supports to ensure that all the children's needs, especially their cultural needs, can be met. So we can definitely have a chat with you about that. Um, and just some stats in terms of from 2018 to 2019, we had about 3,000 children get reunified with their families, which is a really, really beautiful outcome in the work that we do. So we do want to highlight that. Um, Yeah, and fostering, there's a question about whether fostering is happening right now. I guess in terms of COVID-19, there has been some changes, but recruitment is definitely 100% still going ahead. Agencies need carers now more than ever. So it's moved into a bit of an online space for some of that recruitment process. So I'll go into a little bit more detail about that as we go along. In terms of the children that are in foster care, so they are likely children and young people that have experienced some challenges, some tough times, and it's really important that foster carers are aware of that as they go into it to provide the level of support that these children will need. So the training that carers undergo does cover how to support children in care, and you always have your foster care agency along with you through that process to make sure that you're being the best carer that you can be and how to support that child's particular individual needs, because there's no one size fits all when it comes to dealing with children and young people. And a foster care agency will always match a child to your needs as well. So when you go through that assessment process, you'll be thinking about, okay, what is the best fit for our household? What would we be best able to support? And that agency will work through that with you to make sure that if you guys are having the best match, then the best possible experience will happen for that child as well. Um, and you're able to also find a lot of information by logging onto our website. You can download our information pack, and we'll try to link that into the comments if that's possible as we go along, if you want to have some of this to read at hand. Unfortunately, we can't share that screen today. In terms of who can become a foster carer, so we do encourage people who are over the age of 21 to consider foster caring if they're able to or interested in it. You can be single, you can be in a relationship, you can be working full time or not working at all. What you really do need is a spare bedroom and a bedroom that is neutral for that child. So if you have children of your own, it would not be recommended for you to be moving your own children into a room to share together while the foster care child comes there. It needs to be a room that is safe and neutral for them so that they can feel safe and secure in your home. So that main qualifying factor is that spare bedroom. And then as you go along, you have conversations with the agency to make sure that it's the best fit for them and for yourself. We encourage carers from all backgrounds and all life stages. So, regardless of whether you are older or younger, have experience with children, are in a same-sex relationship, are from a different cultural background, we really do encourage everyone to consider it and put their hand up if it's something that they think they might be able to offer some help in. You as a carer get to role model that diversity and that inclusiveness in your home and ability to feel safe and provide that. So, everyone that has that openness in their heart can do that. Are we connected with Quantum Support Service? Yes, we are. So they are one of the agencies that are affiliated with us. So we've got about 22 agencies now that we work with across the state. So if you call through and you're not sure who is local to you, or if you submit through our website and inquire, you can see exactly which agencies cover your postcode area. And just noting that now the recruitment process, yes, it's still going ahead. COVID has not stopped that because it is significant and really important to go ahead. But it does look a little bit different. So the recruitment times might take about 6 to 9 months. It can go faster, it can go slower. It really just depends on how available you are to, attend all the appointments, all the trainings, and how quickly you can go through that, and some of the paperwork involved with that. So those are factors, and the agency that you get referred to will be able to let you know what their average wait times are and how soon their trainings are coming up and things like that. So essentially, the way we get you to be linked in with an agency is you can submit an inquiry through our website, or you can call through and have a chat with myself. You then get referred to the agency. They give you a call within 2 days, so you don't have to do anything. We also send you out an information pack. They will then invite you to their information session, which, depending on where you are in Victoria, might be online. The information session is where you can get to know the team, learn about their program, and decide if you want to take the next step forward. After that, you move on to training, which also very likely to be online due to coronavirus. And there are a lot of flexible times in how agencies are running that now. So you learn all the foundations there. You learn about your role as a carer, about the foster care system itself, the amount of support you'll get, the team that you'll be working with, because there are care teams involved for children. So that's all the significant people in their lives, as well as all the professionals in their lives. So you as a carer become a part of that team, and you guys are all working together to support the children in your care. You also learn about how to support a child's culture and identity, how to support birth family contact, um, and so forth. So that training is really thorough, and it gives you a really great foundational understanding to determine what would be, the best fit for you moving forward. And at no point are you forced to have to continue on. Like, you can change your mind and decide it's not the right time for you now. But once you've got that training under your belt, that's really great. And then if you want to come back to it, you can. We've got a few questions. So if you work 4 to 5 days per week, but you have access to childcare, what's the youngest age group that you can care for? So working would not eliminate you from being able to care for young children. A lot of foster carers are able to still care for young children and access childcare. So that age wouldn't be like a set limit. It's just about your household and what that looks like, and and what sort of support you would need and what would be the best fit. So there isn't any limitation in that. We've also got another question. Is there a minimum age for your youngest biological child before you can move forward with the process of becoming a foster carer? Are you allowed to be pregnant while going through the process? So most agencies will recommend that your child is around near 2 years old. It definitely shouldn't discourage you from inquiring and speaking specifically with your agency about that, but ideally around 2 and older would be recommended. But it's definitely something to have a chat with the agency about, and they'll be able to guide you on that further as well. And fostering long-term only. No. So the beauty of foster care is that it is so flexible. And I will jump into the different types of placements in just a second. So there are 4 main different types of placements, some of them just being a night here or there, some of them a couple of weeks. And then obviously there is the long-term option of foster care where you can care for a child until they're the age of 18. You do also get a lot of support as a foster carer. So you will meet with your case manager at least once a month. You'll be working with the child's case manager. So they'll be coming and seeing you and ensuring that everything's going well. You'll be able to do ongoing training. Agencies also have after hours services. So if you have anything after 5 that someone can't respond to, you have that support 24/7. And you also become a member of FCAV, which is the Foster Care Association of Victoria, and they're the peak body that provides support to foster carers. So there's a very large amount of support that you get. You're never in it on your own. In terms of how long placements last, they last for as long as you are available and what you are best able to provide. So with the 4 different types of care, we've got respite care, which tends to be more planned, and it can be generally people who are working full time, who might be new to it and just want to get a feel if it's the right fit for them, get to understand the system, or if their schedule is just really busy and they know, okay, I need to plan out this 1 weekend a month that I know that I'll have a child staying with me. And that could look like the same child coming to stay in your home, so that you have that ongoing relationship with them, and you're a role model to them and providing that ongoing support to the foster family. And or that could be you simply setting that weekend open so that the agency knows that you're available for placement, and different children might be coming to stay with you. So there is that flexibility there. There's also emergency placements, which are the opposite, so they're less planned. So that could be you getting a call at 2 p.m. or whatever time you say you're available until to receive last minute placements, saying, so and so needs a placement today. They're 5 years old. This is the information we have about them. Are you available? And at that stage is when you can offer what whether you need any more information, what sort of supports you would need, and if you could offer a night or a few nights, or what you can put into that space. So some carers might just say, okay, I can offer just 1 night, and then the agency might take that up if they don't have a different option. Or you might say, okay, great, I can do from Wednesday until next Monday. And then that gives the agency and child protection time to source a more longer placement for that child or young person while they have that sense of stability with you. And you can definitely make a really significant impact in that space. So an agency will always, if you're open to it, contact you again if you care for a child, and if you'd like for them to return if they ever needed to. So I've worked with a lot of kids that, for whatever reason didn't have stable placements, but they would go back to the regular respite or emergency care that they had been with, which at least provided them during a very unstable time some sense of familiarity and stability and safety, because they were going back to that same care every few months instead of going into a completely new household with different different dynamics and everything in that space. Um, let's see if we have some more questions before I go on. If you're looking to foster babies 0 to 1, is a spare room still a requirement, or are they able to go into a master bedroom and a cot? Most agencies do want you to have a spare bedroom, but I would say inquire with an agency anyways, because it can be depending on their policy, but most agencies would want you to still have a spare bedroom. When it comes to fostering babies, this is a really common question. And as you can imagine, a lot of people put their hand up because they want to look after beautiful babies. But in that space, we get a situation of there may be a few options for that child, and so then the child protection have to make the decision of what's the best option for them. So if there's a carer who is further away, or if there's a carer who's working full time but would be available to take this baby, but the baby would have to be in childcare, then the option of someone who's not working would be preferred. So I guess when you're thinking about what ages you'd be interested in caring, you're thinking about why that is, what you'd be able to offer, and if there's any leeway in what you can offer, like what you can adjust in that age range to support more children if you're interested in that. Um, in terms of the different types of care, we've also got short-term care, which can be a few months, a few weeks to a few months, and that could be because the child still has ongoing court matters, so a decision hasn't been made about family reunification, or it could be that a long-term placement hasn't been identified for them yet and you're offering that. It could be that you're providing the short term, and then if that child is to remain in long-term care, then you could potentially put your hand up to be their long-term care. It could be a discussion you could have with the agency. It does really vary, and it really is case by case. So you're informed along the way, um, and it can ebb and flow and change to what your needs are. And then lastly, we have long term care, which is children that are not going to be reunified with their families generally. And they remain in care until the age of 18, and the agency remains involved with that household and they continue to provide that support. Um, so that there's a need for all four different types of care. Like agencies need respite cares, emergency cares, short term, long term. Like we need all of it. Um, so depending on what is the right fit for you, there's a lot of flexibility in what you could offer in that space. Let's see if there's any more questions. Um, So when you inquire with an agency, you'll send the forms back to them. If it's just an inquiry, then it comes through us, or directly with an agency, and it gets submitted through to them and they get in touch with you. But if there's any delays, you can always contact us if it came through us. So hopefully that answers your question. We might move on to some myths of fostering, while we don't have some questions coming up. And that would be, so you can, that you can't care if you're not working. That's not true. You can totally be working full time or part time. Some children do need a stay at home care, and that's often for children that are under 5. But you can definitely talk with your agency about your circumstances and what that best fit is. In terms of being in a relationship, you don't have to be in a relationship to be a foster care. A lot of single individuals put their hands up to care, whether that's being a long-term carer or just doing respite. Um, you can be any sexuality, gender, or gender identity. There is no limitations with that. We need carers from all backgrounds, and it's just about offering that safe home. You also don't need to own your home, and it doesn't need to be a big house. The requirement is having a spare bedroom. Um, so if you're unsure about the space, whether it would be suitable or not, you can give us a call. We can work through it with you. The agency also is able to as well. When you get through the training and you move on to the assessment, um, then the agency will come to the home and make sure that the environment is appropriate for a child or young person. So they'll inform you exactly what they're looking for. That doesn't mean that you need to do any home renovations necessarily or anything like that. That's not very common. It's just ensuring that the environment is safe and appropriate for a child. Um, so just being aware of that. Um, but like the myth that you need parenting experience, you definitely don't need parenting experience to be a foster carer. What children in care need is stability and support, and anyone can provide that. As a carer, you get a lot of training. And you get that ongoing support from the agency. So even if you haven't had children of your own, we definitely encourage people to put their hand up to be those role models and those mentors in these children's lives. In terms of myths of whether you can have children in the home with you. Um, you can definitely have your own children and be a foster carer. So a lot of people who don't have children, people who have younger children or older children, they decide as a family what they feel might be the best match. So some carers choose to foster children that are younger than their own. Some carers choose to foster teenagers when their own children are younger. So it really just depends on your household and what your household's needs are. Um, we want children to have inclusive and supporting experiences while they are in foster care, and that can happen with any sort of family structure. So definitely, if you have children and they're comfortable with it, and you've had a conversation about that, you can definitely put your hand up and explore that. Your children will be included in the assessment process, so the agency will have a chat with them and see what their views are when you get through that process after you've completed training. And anyone that's over 18 in your household has to complete the training as well. So you might just be applying as a single carer or as a couple, and you guys will go through the assessment period after the training. But anyone that's over 18 has to do that training to make sure that they're aware and across what the needs of foster care are and how to best support children that they might come across. Um, in terms of a child needing to live with you for years at a time, that is also a myth. So, like I mentioned before, fostering is very flexible. So, some carers might have children live with them for years at a time, but others, it might just be that one night here or there where you've made that difference. I mean, we had a young person um, stay in care over Christmas, and it was just for a couple of days. This was at an agency I worked with, and that little boy still mentioned what a beautiful experience he had, even though he only stayed at that placement for that one holiday period. A year later, he was still talking about it and what a great experience he had. So you can definitely make an impact, even if it's just a one-off experience for that child, and showing them that there is a safe place to stay. I think we've got a couple of questions here. Um, in terms of if a couple or if a person has a disability, that would not disqualify you from being a carer. So we just encourage you to speak with the agency about, what your needs are and what sort of support you would have and how you'd be able to support a child. And then they're able to work with you to identify, how that might look with a foster care child in placement. So it's definitely not something that would disqualify you from being a carer, but it's just about being really transparent and open about what that looks like and what the agency needs to be aware of to support you and to also support the children that are coming into your home. And we've also got a comment that some agencies do accept carers that don't have a spare bedroom for children that are up until the age of 1. So that answers someone else's question. So I guess in that situation, always inquire, and we'll try to point you in the right direction, because it really depends on the agency. Um, we've got a few more comments here, so just bear with me. Um, so agencies are not open to sharing a bedroom with biological children and a foster care child. The foster care child needs to be in a room of their own. And that's to keep the foster care child safe and also to keep your family safe. So that's definitely something that has to go ahead. So they do need to be in their own room, and children, foster care children, can't share bedrooms with other children while they're in care, unless it's their siblings. But for children that are unrelated to them is what I meant. So if you care for siblings, they can definitely share a room together if it's appropriate. If they're going to be a long-term placement, then you might want to think about what's that going to look like when they're teenagers and they want their own space and things like that. But while they're younger, definitely siblings can share bedrooms when it's been assessed appropriate to do so. Do foster carers have a special name they can be called by the children? Would it be hard taking on such a big caring role and having a child use your first name? We look, when it comes to what a foster care child calls you, it's always it's very unique and dependent on the relationship that you have with that child and what they're comfortable with. So it's about checking to see, what do they want to call you. Some younger children might call a foster care mommy and daddy. Some of them might call them, you know, an auntie. Some kids that are school aged might want to say that you're their friend. It's really just about checking in with the child and seeing what they are comfortable with and what they would like to call you. Um, and some carers might put that forward and say, no, actually, like, you can call me by my first name, and you've got your tummy mummy. It really depends. And if you're ever unsure, it's to talk about that with your agency, and they'll be able to guide you on what's appropriate in that space too. Um, let's see. In terms of, let's see, there's a few more frequently asked questions we can go through. So, you get information about a child before they are placed with you. So the agency will send you all the information that they have. If you would like any more information, they can definitely go back to child protection and ask that. It's really beautiful when a carer can be like, look, I know Johnny's coming to stay for the weekend. Can you find out what his routine is? When's his bedtimes? What's his favorite dish so that we can make, his favorite dinner tonight when he comes over. So it's always okay to ask more questions and get more information. Sometimes we won't have all the information. So if a child's been removed in an emergency situation and they're not known to child protection, then we might kind of be learning the information as we go, but you definitely get everything that is available. And you can work with the agency to discover more or get what you need to know as well. But generally, when you would get that information, it would include their behaviors, it would include what school they go to, um, their placement history, the reason why they're in care, how to support them culturally, family details, contact arrangements with their family. So you do get as much information you can as possible. Um, can foster care lead to adoption of the child? So fostering does not lead to adoption. We definitely do recommend people who are interested in adoption or in permanent care to explore those avenues first before they explore fostering. Just because, foster care is the temporary support of a child unless they cannot return home and it turns into a long-term arrangements. Yes, there are some occasional circumstances where a long-term foster care placement might change into a permanent care arrangement, but that is very circumstantial. And it really depends on that personal situation and that circumstance, the carer's needs, the child's needs, the age, their family. So if you're more interested in looking at permanent care or adoption, we definitely recommend going to that avenue first instead of going into fostering with the hopes that it could evolve into that, because there's definitely no guarantees with foster care. The goal is always for a child to return to family if they can. And I think we can link, Kinship Cares Victoria is a peak body for people who are interested in kinship care. We've got a peak body for permanent carers, and a lot of agencies support permanent care. So we can definitely try to link some of that information for you guys if you're interested um, in in that. Can you use cloth nappies for foster children? Look, that is really dependent on that child's needs. So if you are getting a child that is still in nappies, then you'd be talking about that with the agency to find out what have they been currently using and what they're comfortable with. So that's a very specific question that you'd work with the agency around, and ideally trying to, when you have babies coming into care, trying to get the formula that they have been using, if you know what that is, and things like that, so that it can be as smooth of a transition into your home as it can be. So just trying to be really consistent while they adjust to your home before changing that for them. Um, in terms of saying no to a placement, you can always say no to a placement. So you never have to accept. You always get to negotiate that. So even with a respite or with an emergency placement, if someone calls you, you never have to say yes. You could say, unfortunately, this isn't a good time. And agencies don't want you to say yes just because it pulls on your heartstrings. We want you to say yes because it's the right time and the right thing for you to do. If have a crazy deadline at work and you're really stressed out and you're just not in the best space, you probably won't be providing the best level of care that weekend for that placement. So it's better for you to flag that with the agency that, hey, I actually need a break, rather than putting your hand up and potentially not having a positive experience with that child. So you can always say no. And your agency is able to support you through any difficult decisions that you have to make, so they can weigh that up with you. In terms of if you've only lived in Australia for a few years, are you able to foster? So any non-permanent residents or non-Australian citizens, like let's say someone who is on a business sponsorship visa, um, and this doesn't apply to New Zealand citizens, but if someone is on a work visa here, that is temporary for a few years, like a business sponsorship, then it would just be identified that you could be a carer, but you would not be a long-term carer. You could just provide short-term emergency or respite care, depending on what you're available to do. Um, So that is the recommendation there, until you become a permanent resident or a citizen to provide long-term care. Regarding children in foster care having contact with their family, children in care definitely do have contact with their families, and your role as a foster care is to support that, and to make it as possible, as positive as it can be. So we know that when children are connected with their birth family, it helps them process their experiences, helps them have a stronger sense of identity, higher self-esteem, higher confidence, um, and it eases a lot of some of the uncertainties that they have. So as a carer, it's about looking at how you can make that more positive for them, whether it's, helping them pick a Mother's Day present before their Mother's Day contact, helping them write a letter or, handing over the drawings that they have done at childcare to take to contact so that mom and dad can see that and see what they've been working on. So there's a lot of many ways that you can support family contact, and you will get all the information around when it is, how often it's happening, who's facilitating it, like is it the agency or is it child protection, where is it occurring, so you're able to work your schedule around that, and to know exactly what to expect. And the agency will also support you on how to ensure that when the child returns home, that it's as comfortable as it can be after seeing their family, because sometimes that can be a little bit emotionally charged. So how for you to best support the child coming back into the home and to be there for them as they're processing whatever that is. Um, in terms of whether you've had a police record, can you still become a carer? So all foster carers undergo a criminal record check as well as a working with children's check. So if you already have a working with children's check as a teacher or in a different profession, you do have to get another one as a volunteer. That's a myth that we like to bust because a lot of teachers say, no, I already have one. No, we have to do it again. So if anything does come up in that check, or in the criminal records check, you do have to explore that with the agency. It's best for you to disclose that in advance, before it comes out to the agency so that they can work through that with you, identify if it impacts your capacity to care, the time that it happened, the nature of it. All of those are factors that impact that. So having a criminal record wouldn't necessarily disqualify you from being a carer, but it's just about being really transparent and honest with the agency to make sure that everyone has the best information to ensure that you'd be able to provide the best possible care for a child. In terms of getting support for daily routines or school pickup and childcare. So ideally, children are matched to be close to school and home, and so that you'd be able to support their daily routine. In instances where that's not possible, that can definitely be negotiated with the agency, whether they need transport or childcare and things like that, or whether they're traveling further to go to their original place of school or childcare to keep that consistency for them. So all those factors are identified when you're accepting a placement and as those things come along. So you can always have those ongoing conversations with the agency. Can you change your mind about the type of care you provide? Yes, you can definitely change your mind. So you get an annual review with your agency every single year, which is a space for you to just say, this went well, this could have been done a little bit better, this is what we really liked, these were our strengths, this is what we'd like to improve. And that is a space for you to identify, actually, we've done respite and emergency, this past year, we'd like to start doing more short-term care. What would that look like? And you're not limited to needing to wait to do that just at your annual review. If things change as you're going through the process, you can definitely bring that up to your agency, and they will talk through that with you to see what would be the best steps moving forward. So sometimes carers might be short-term carers for a child, and then they're like, actually, they're a great fit to our household. We all get along really well. We love them. They need a long-term placement now because they're not able to return home. We want to put our hands up to be long-term carers for this child, and then the agency can work through that with you to move forward. So that is something that does happen. Um, what happens if I'm a carer and a new partner comes into my life? So that's a really common question that we come across. So as you learn about that in the training and in your assessment, but if someone is coming into your life, um, like since you've been accredited, it's about discussing it with the agency to introduce them in an appropriate and safe way if they are to be introduced to that child. So, having a chat with the agency, having them run the checks, if they're going to be living with you, having them do the training, um, and different things like that. So the agency definitely guides you through that because we need to ensure that the children that are staying in your homes are safe. Um, so that is a part of that. Um, see if we have any other questions. Um, there are volunteering options. Um, so it wouldn't necessarily be through foster care. Foster caring is volunteering, but that is a child staying with you in your home. If you want to volunteer with children that are in care, there are a couple of organizations that do that. We're not affiliated with them, but you would be able to um, look them up. And some of them are volunteering with children uh, to help them with their schooling, to be a mentor. There are volunteering services for children that are exiting care. So it starts from 15 and up. So being a support for them as they're leaving care, like leaving care mentoring. Um, so there's a lot of space that you can do there. So I think there's some links that were put into the chat for you. Um, great. Um, in terms of your support network as a carer, that's a question that comes up a lot. So you identify your natural support network during the assessment process. Because yes, you have the support of the agency, but it's also about who else, that saying, it takes a village to raise a child. It's very true. And as a foster carer, you become a part of that village. So it's identifying who's in your natural network, along with who will then come into your network as well once you're a foster carer, whether that's the agency, whether that's other carers, whether you're a respite carer and you build that supportive relationship with the long-term carer. There's a lot of scope in that. But you definitely do consider your own village of support and what that can look like. And if you identify that you've got family that want to be involved with a child that comes into your care, they're more than welcome to do the training. You can talk about that with the agency. You'd have to get them to do police checks. The agency can run that for you, so you can do that in advance. And it's great to start thinking about that early, because we all have to come together to support the children that come into our lives, and that is a really beautiful way to do it. In terms of having guests when you're a foster care child, that's something that's really commonly asked. So it's just about letting your agency know. And if they have to run any relevant police checks and things like that, they will. So it's definitely a conversation to have with your agency and to plan that in advance. Also, in terms of traveling overseas with a foster care child, you can definitely travel overseas if you get the right permission, also interstate. So, the things that need to be considered is giving as much notice as possible. If you're traveling interstate or overseas, there need to be allowances for that. You need to be granted permission from child protection. So you get a letter to be able to travel. Some children might not have a passport, so allowing time for them to get that. So it's just about giving as much notice as possible and then identifying, does it clash with any family contacts that, we wouldn't be able to accommodate? Is it around a court hearing and things like that? So the agency will be able to guide you through that. Um, the support, you get a lot of support as a carer from the agency with a case manager coming to see you once a month at minimum, just to check in and make sure you're doing, and that's standard practice. And everyone in the sector has to do that, so it's called supervision. And it's essentially where they're coming to have a chat with you about how things have been going, what's been great, what are the things we need to celebrate, what baby steps have we made this month, what are the things that we need to be aware of, are you planning any trips coming up that we might need to organize respite for, or permissions to travel, what are things we need to work on, what trainings do you want to do. It's essentially your space to vent, to celebrate, to plan. It's your space with your case manager to do that. So that is a part of the support that you get on top of FCAV and after hours lines and then just the day-to-day engagements that you have with the care team. Um, in terms of using current police checks, so you do have to run a new police check, and the agency will do that for you. So that's a really common question that comes up. I just had a police check done. Are we just able to forward that on? No, we have to do new ones. And in addition to that, the agency does have a disqualified carer register. So anyone that inquires to be a carer and moves past that training process will be put on that register um, to see if anything comes up, and you remain on that register while you are an accredited carer. So the agency will be able to explain a little bit more of that for you. Um, in terms of the number of agencies that you can become accredited with, you can only become accredited with one agency. So then that agency is with you on that journey. You have your case manager and the children that you care for through them. Some carers might need to transfer for whatever reason. If you're moving and your current agency doesn't have an office in that area, you can transfer to a different agency. So that's just about having a chat with your current agency about what the process of that is. And then with the new agency, that's definitely something that happens. Some carers might be accredited and they move interstate. So transfers definitely can happen. And then your assessment process will look slightly different than it did when you first came through to become a carer. Do we have any other questions at this stage? In terms of how foster care children are when they enter care, your training does cover a lot of what that can look like for children, how they might be feeling, how nervous they might be, how uncertain things could be feeling for them in their world, how powerless they might be feeling. Some children do get removed for having experienced abuse or neglect, and they can, as a result, have some trauma presentations because of that. So the agency does support you through all of that, and your training is very thorough, and you're able to keep doing more training to ensure that you're responding to the children's needs as you can, as you go along. Um, so while we don't have that many more questions, I just want to flag, the beautiful work that foster carers have been doing, especially this year, this challenging year that has just, been thrown at us. We will be highlighting some of that beautiful work that carers have done for the rest of the week. So feel free to keep checking in on our social media and on our website. We'll be posting a lot of that for Foster Care Week. If you're interested in fostering, don't hesitate to pick up the phone or submit an inquiry online, whether you're just at the start of the process and just thinking about it for a few years' time, or whether you're like, no, this is it for me, I'm ready to go. Pick up that phone, have a chat with myself. The phone number is 1-800-013-088, or you can check our website, which is fosteringconnections.com.au. And we're more than happy to assist you as you go on that journey and answer any questions that you have. So yeah, just think about what your village is and what you can offer in that space and whether it's the right fit for you. And then we'll help you from there. So on that note, I will finish our live stream. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. Our first Facebook Live, probably one of many coming up. And I hope everyone's staying safe and that you get to enjoy your extra hour of sunshine if you are in Melbourne Metro. All right, well, thank you so much. And feel free to give us a call if you need anything else. Thank you. Bye.